Hi there. I'm calling this video You Don't Know Fats, and maybe you are aware of that reference. We used to play the game You Don't Know Jack when I was a kid, so anybody know that reference? That's where this is coming from. So let's talk a little bit about fats. There's been a lot of fat misinformation over the years, and most of us have been led to believe that fat is bad and fat is unhealthy, and that is simply not true. Your body needs fat. It's in the cell wall of every cell in your body, and so if you don't have fat, that's going to be a problem. You need it for energy. Your brain is about 60% fat, so you need fat for brain health. You need it for neurological health, for a healthy nervous system. You also need it for heart health, because your heart uses 60% of its energy is derived from fat. So you definitely need fat. There is misconceptions also around the fact that what is a healthy fat? And everyone's like, oh, like avocado. Avocado is definitely a healthy fat, but there are a lot of other healthy fats out there that I think get labeled as unhealthy because of, again, misinformation. So I want to talk to you today about what that is. So we're going to talk a little bit of chemistry, and I'm going to put some visuals in here so that you can see what I'm talking about. Saturated fats. Most people think unhealthy because that's what we've been told for many years. But basically what saturated means is that the chemical structure is such that every carbon atom is attached with a single bond to a hydrogen. And so that there are no double bonds, essentially. And so you'll see that in the pictures. And what an unsaturated fat, whether it's monounsaturated, means it has one double bond, meaning the carbon is linked with a double bond, or polyunsaturated, which would mean that it is linked with many double bonds. So that's really what saturated and unsaturated fats mean. They don't necessarily inherently mean something negative. I like to think of the word saturated kind of negatively, with negative connotations, and that's just been a good media campaign, essentially. The problem with unsaturated fats is that oxidation can occur at the site of double bonds. That's where it happens. Oxidation is when the fat has gone bad or rancid, sometimes you'll hear people say. It's also in the body, we eat antioxidant-rich diet to combat oxidation. So it helps to prevent the premature aging and what we call rusting of the body. If you think of an apple, when you slice an apple, if you don't eat it right away, it turns brown. That's oxidation. That's what's happening in the body. And it's a normal process. You need oxidation. But it's too much is not necessary. Too much is bad. When fats oxidize, that helps to form free radicals in the body. Again, why we want antioxidants. If I go back to my apple analogy, if you squeeze a little bit of lemon juice on that apple, what happens? Doesn't turn brown, and that is because you've added an antioxidant in the form of vitamin C to your apple. And so that's why we encourage an antioxidant-rich diet. Antioxidants come from plants, and those free radicals in the body, they cause damage to the tissues, the cell, and even your DNA. And we want to avoid as much excess oxidation as we can. And so this is why I believe that saturated fats are your healthiest fats, and unsaturated fats are unhealthy. And let's talk about how oxidation occurs. Oxidation occurs via heat and light exposure. Now, if you take a vegetable oil, for example, like canola oil, if you check out the video how it's made, canola oil, you'll see how canola oil is made, and you'll see that they use heat in the processing of it, as well as a lot of light exposure to it. And that's pretty true for all vegetable oils. And all of them are not actually vegetables. There's, except for avocado, well, that's actually a fruit. So no vegetable oils. They're all seed-based oils. So we misname them because it sounds better. But so there's heat and light damage that's happening in the processing. And then if you go to the grocery store, have you ever looked at a bottle of canola oil? It's clear. What's happening? It's being exposed to more light. So that's why if you look at a good quality olive oil, for instance, you'll see that it's in a dark green bottle to prevent light damage. The other thing is that you're going to go home and cook with that canola oil or vegetable oil, which is then more heat damage. So even if it was cold processed or cold pressed, it's likely that you're going to use it at a high temperature, and then it's going to be damaged at that point in time. I recommend avoiding canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, and similar oils. Like I mentioned before, olive oil will have a dark green bottle. Usually it's dark green, again, to prevent light damage. You'll also see things like first cold press or extra virgin, meaning it's the first press. It's not been pressed multiple times, and it's using a cold press method where they're not using heat to extract the oil. So that's something to look for when you're buying a quality olive oil. I also don't recommend cooking with high temperatures with olive oil. It is strictly in my house used for salad dressings and to finish off a dish or a low temperature dish. Medium heated would be the highest that I would go with olive oil. Also, something you want to look for olive oil would be that not only does it say like when it's going to expire, most things will say when it's going to expire, but what you really want to look for is the harvest date, because all food that's a fruit or vegetable or nut or seed or even a grain has a season. It was picked and harvested at a certain time of year, and it's not going to last forever, and so it will go bad. And so if they're not willing to share when it was harvested, then you may want to pick a different brand that does share the harvest date with you. So what fats should you cook with? My favorite is butter, grass-fed butter. I tend to buy Kerrygold, but anything that you can find for grass-fed is awesome. I also like grass-fed ghee. Ghee is another amazing fat, especially if you don't tolerate a lot of dairy. Ghee is usually, they say, about 99.5% lactose and casein free. So the milk sugar and the milk protein has been taken out, and you're just left with the milk fat. If you're sensitive to dairy, you should definitely check how much they're removing as far as the casein and the lactose. But if you're not very sensitive, it's just a delicious cooking fat. It is a little bit more pricey than a grass-fed butter, so I tend to use both of those. I also like coconut oil. Coconut oil is awesome for cooking, but it does have a sweet flavor. So I tend to use it with sweeter things like beets or carrots if I'm roasting them. I also will use it in a baking recipe because of it being sweeter for that. You want to look for unrefined virgin coconut oil as well. The other fats that I like to cook with are animal fats. And I know that's going to be shocking to some of you because you've always been told avoid the animal fats. Now, if you're looking at conventional animal fats from conventionally raised meats, I would definitely advise against that. They're going to have a lot of toxins are stored in the fat, and so they're going to have a lot of the toxins in the fat, and you don't want that. But if you're getting grass-fed beef, pasture-raised pork, pasture-raised chickens or ducks, then those are good animal fats to cook with. So I tend to like duck fat, but I do use tallow and lard as well. I'll get quality pasture-raised bacon and then save the bacon fat for cooking because it is a great fat to cook with. So those are the animal fats that I will cook with in addition to butter and ghee. And again, this basically is all based on whether it's saturated or unsaturated. Animal fats are unsaturated and have a very high smoke point, meaning it won't start to degrade. Now, a lot of folks like to cook with avocado oil, and it's kind of a new trend, and I'm not completely against it, but I don't seek it out, especially for high heat. It may say it's a high heat oil, whether it's a saturated or unsaturated, it's mostly a unsaturated fat. So damage is going to be occurring on a mostly unsaturated fat. So hopefully this has cleared up some misconception around fats for you. If you have a question, feel free to drop it here below or shoot me an email at cleaneatingwithkatie@gmail.com. Have a great day.